Hi, I'm Frolic in the Forest. Welcome to my channel where I talk about my Sylvanian families and Calico Critters collection as well as DIY projects and crafts. I have been itching to customize some Freya dolls. If you're like me, you have quite a few little extra Freyas hanging around and they're a pretty good base to create a custom critter. So I have an idea to make two different girls, and so that's what I'm going to do in this video. It's going to be a little bit long video, but I hope you enjoy it. Here are the first two Freya dolls that I'm going to customize, and the first thing I've got to do is paint that brown off the tips of their ears. And for this project, I'm going to be using fabric paint and just the white for the first step. In case you're curious, this is the brush I'll be using. It's a number 5. It's just an inexpensive acrylic brush I got from the craft store. For this girl, I'm going to paint the tips of the ears a lavender color to match the lavender rabbits. So I need to make sure that the chocolate is really covered well so that it won't show through for a pastel color like lavender. And I'm carefully covering the chocolate cover, but I realized that it was kind of showing through a little bit on the edge, so I had to end up paint a little bit over that brown area. It's no big deal. And again, just remember whenever you're painting an edge with fabric paint on flocking to make sure that those edges are saturated with paint. You don't want them to be very sparingly painted because the flocking sometimes moves and then you have kind of a fuzzy edge or an inconsistent edge or shape. But as long as you remember that, everything is good. Here's how the first coat turned out. I think so far so good. It's exactly what I was hoping it would look like. And now on to rabbit number 2. As I'm setting her down to dry, it looks like her ear is touching the paper, but it's just barely not touching the paper. So just remember whenever you are setting your figure to dry, make sure that they are not touching anything. And so that means sometimes you have to paint one half of the figure and then let it dry and paint the other half. Now for this second figure, I'm painting a little bit further down on the ear to represent the wildflower rabbit family. And they're a family that has white tipped ears, but they're about halfway down their ear. And then the rest of their body is kind of a peachy pink color, except for their muzzle. So she's going to hopefully turn into a wildflower rabbit. I want to comment on how the texture changes when you use fabric paint on the flocking, and it definitely makes the area that you paint a lot more stiff. So if that would bother you texture-wise, this may not be a craft or a custom thing that you would enjoy. Now, I will say that the white paint in this particular brand that I'm using is especially stiff and honestly a little sticky for this project. I had not really used it before. I I was painting a few things at the same time and I was using white and discovering this about the white, but I don't really like that about it. But I mean, I don't really have a choice. It is what it is. However, when I have used just the black or just the gray or just the brown, it is a little bit different feel than the sort of pure flocking on the original figures. Um, but it's not a big deal for me. I still feel like it has the flocking and everything. I know that there are some creators out there who will show you how to reflock a figure, which I'm sort of fascinated to try and fall down that little rabbit hole, no pun intended. That's for another time. However, I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up that the actual fabric paint does change the texture of the flocking. Now, someone had mentioned that they use the fabric paint markers, and I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. If you've used those, if they are a little bit softer result, that would be kind of nice to know. And I have noticed on some of the original figures, if they have different color variations already on them, you can kind of feel that, like even on the hopscotch rabbits, the brown part is a little bit stiffer feeling than their sort of beige cream body. Um, so it's a little bit like that difference, except more so when you add more paint, obviously. But I just thought I'd talk about that for a second while I'm painting. Paint is such an instant gratification. Look how different these bunnies look already just by removing the brown on their ears. I'm already intrigued to see how these customs will develop. Okay, so the first layer of white has dried on our rabbits, and I just wanted to show you how it looks. So with the one layer on top of the brown just by itself, you can still see it's kind of got this ghosting happening where you can see the brown through the white. Now, since I want to paint this a pastel purple, I'm going to add at least another coat of white to the tips of the ears so that the pastel will show its color the best and it won't be affected by a darker color underneath. Now, this is interesting. So, our other rabbit, I was doing a little bit larger area because I want a lot, like all of this, a larger area to be white. Now, again, this is what it looks like with one coat. Now, if this was like a milk rabbit or periwinkle rabbit, that's what it would look like, which is fine with one coat. But because I'm covering a color and we have the white, I'm going to need to do some more painting. I'm going to try and see if I can get away with just doing another coat on this top part and see if that will work. Obviously, try to blend the two areas. Um, One thing I don't really like about the fabric paint is it definitely sits on top of the flocking. It's not like reflocking the the animal. So it's got a different look, but hey, we're just having fun and making custom critters. So I'm not going to worry about it if you're not going to worry about it. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know kind of the steps and what it looks like if you are interested in trying this technique. So it takes a little while to dry. I can't remember how many hours, but this is the next day. Um, and so we're going to give it another coat and then take a look at what that looks like. So with just the second coat of paint, you can already tell a huge difference between the one coat dried and the second coat applied. It's pretty satisfying again, and hopefully when this dries, it will completely cover the brown and there won't be any ghosting this time. I'm finally getting to start my lavender rabbit, and so I've prepared by getting some of my purple fabric paint and some white, and I already got some on myself. Now I wanted to get my inspiration photo next to my rabbit so I can refer back to the color that I'm aiming for. And I'm just going to mix white with our purple to get the shade of lavender. The photograph seems a little bit darker than some of the other photographs I've seen, and I think I'm going to aim for something a little bit lighter than that. But let's just see what happens. Since I did the work of giving myself a nice white base, the color is going on really beautifully. It's just a very soft pastel purple. And all I have to do is just cover that white area and then decide if it needs a little bit more or if I like that color the way it is. Here's the first pass and the first look. I already like it so much. It's definitely giving me those lavender rabbit vibes. And so I'm just checking out the first coat and how it turned out. And I'm going to switch to a smaller brush and do the little, they're almost like little petals, the bottom of the ear section. I don't know how else to describe it. And that will go below the section I've already painted. I think it'll be okay, but we'll just see how it dries, if it's a really big delineation or if it blends well. I do like how the shape turned out. I'm not sure if I got the color saturated enough on those little portions, but we'll just let this dry and then look at it later. So she's got to dry now and move on to the next thing. For my next little Freya, I'm going to be inspired by the wildflower rabbit family, and I've drawn out their muzzle and I'm leaving the toes and the hands white. And then I've also given her an eye spot just for fun. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that or not. And I've mixed up a peachy pink color for her fur. And now we just gotta paint. I like to use a pretty small brush when I'm going around the areas that I have drawn in. Just gives me a little bit more control, of course. And as I keep mentioning, make sure that you saturate those edges when you paint them so that you get a nice crisp shape. And I just mean make sure that there's plenty of paint next to the lines or the edge of the boundary that you're painting. The flocking tends to move a little bit sometimes as it's drying, and if there's not enough paint to hold it in place, you will get an irregular shape or an edge. And just make sure that you really get um, a clear amount of paint to the edge. You don't have to be gloppy or anything. Just be more like aware of what you're doing when you're painting and take your time, of course, and just have some fun with it. This color is, I love peach, the peach color, and I'm hoping that this little rabbit looks really cute in this peach color. Often when I'm doing a full body custom paint job like this, I would stop at this point and let the head dry completely before I painted the body. So definitely take your time and do that if you feel like you need to. Since her paws and toes and her nose are not painted, I've got different points that I can lay her down to dry that won't interfere with the paint job. If you've got extra paint left over like I do, and you do want to stop and let portions of the figure dry, just cover your paint with like plastic wrap, and it would it usually will stay okay for at least 24 hours or so, and the next day you can use the paint again. I did decide that I didn't like the eye spot, so I filled it in, and I've done a couple of touch-up spots on her, which you can see where the paint looks a little bit lighter. And I'm just using a little bit of craft paint to pink up her nose, and then I'll need to scrape off the dried paint on her eyes. Well, here she is. She's all dried, and I don't like it. I think she looks sunburned. So I think I have a plan to paint her brown. I've always loved the Wildwood rabbits from the first series, and so I'm going to be inspired by them and change her color. So here we go. I know that this brown will cover really nicely, and I think it's sort of the least worst solution. Um, the color I chose with the orange, it was just too orange. As I was painting it, I was like, I think this will be okay. And it wasn't. It's not. She's way orange, not peach. And, sometimes it just happens. I've had some sort of bad luck with customs lately, but you know, if this will encourage you to keep trying too, then it's worth it. So I'm just going to paint her brown, and I think that will do the trick, and I will show her revealed very soon. I finished her head, and I can already tell I like it. She's going to be really cute. I've just got to finish painting the body, and I'll get right back to you. I want to explain real quick why I didn't just remix the peach color and try another coat of the peach. And the reason is the white fabric paint and the brand that I'm using is very, very, very thick. And if I had gone in with another coat with the white mixed in, the texture would have been really horrible. Unfortunately, it's sort of one and done with this particular white color. I made that mistake on another video if you've seen it. So this time I just cut my losses and I went with a different color that I knew would lay nicely on the painted surface. Here's how our two Freyas turned out. I think they're super duper cute. So let's take a look at them. First off, here's our little lavender girl. And this was a very simple custom. I just added a little bit more paint to her nose. And then we painted the ends of her ears lavender. As you can see again, the overpaint does show separately from the section where I did the priming of the white. So keep that in mind that, if you want it to look completely consistent, you need to do the priming underneath as well. The color is very, very light. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It seems like it is pretty light from the photos I've seen of the actual lavender rabbits. So that's how I went with it. But I almost want it to be a little bit darker so it's, a little bit more apparent. But I'll just think about it, see what I want to do. I just made her a really quick little simple dress out of felt and had a little paint and some ribbon. I got the pattern off Pinterest. It was like, you sew like two little bits on the side and you're done. But it works for a quick little dress. And I think she's super cute. She looks very Eastery. And I'm still not sure if I want to give her a whole family or if she just wants to be like a visiting friend in my forest village. She does kind of stand out since most of my animals are a little bit more naturally colored. Um, but that's kind of why I love the lavender rabbits in their own way because they're different and special. But I love her. I think she's super, super cute. And then let's look at her friend. So this was initially going to be a wildflower rabbit, um, sort of look-alike, but I didn't care for the way that orange turned out, the peach, as you will remember. So I painted her brown, and I think I really like her brown. I think she's super cute. I left her little toes and her paws white or cream. And I don't know, I think she's adorable. I'm going to keep her. The little yellow dress from We Love Thinking on Etsy is adorable, and the little bow is just giving me fits by the cuteness. It's super, super cute, and I think it looks really sharp against her pretty brown fur. I might do a brown rabbit family. I like the white muzzle with the brown. I think that's nice, and I don't know that there's a family that's the dark brown with the light accents. I don't know. We'll see. We'll just stay tuned to see what my creative mind comes up with. I'm still working on another Freya, and yeah, we'll just see. I think they are very cute, and I love that they are now part of the village, part of the lore, and I hope this will encourage you to try your own customs, because you can go as deep or as shallow as you want with these. And there is a little wiggle room if you change your mind. So keep that in mind, that you don't have to be quite so terrified of making a mistake. If you're like me and you don't like to make mistakes, there is a little bit of some grace. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.